Yeah, I think we're live. We really do with a bit better feedback from Facebook on this, but
If I had a friend that was watching it, I suppose I
yeah,
could
I
tell
think we're
someone.
live.
All right, welcome to Black and White Football, and it's day 4 of the World Cup. We've got a lot of topics to cover today, and Will and I are gonna go through a number of them, and we're gonna start off with last night's games, and Croatia versus Nigeria. What did you think of that, Will?
Yeah, it was a tight enough game, which I kind of thought might be the situation. Obviously, I think Nigeria were kind of unfortunate with their first goal. You know, kind of a ricochet header off a defender. So that was not a nice way to kind of go behind. And then obviously a penalty, which I think it was a penalty on Saturday evening. So disappointing for Nigeria. I think Moses the deck more times than Neymar last night. So it was an interesting game. Interesting game. How did you feel as a Nigerian fan?
Yeah, I have to say, uh, it was tight. I was not impressed with Croatia, but you could see that they had, players that class apart, 1 to
Hmm.
11. Um, I just, I felt Nigeria could have been more adventurous, especially going forward. They just seemed very, I thought nervous, but very just timid in their play, which is surprising for
Mm.
one of the African teams because they usually kind of leave it all in the line and don't really give much cause for you know cut things up in the back. They just kind of attack. But I was very surprised the way they set up yesterday. Moses, although he seemed to be hitting the ground very very often, he was the only guy I felt was causing any sort of trouble for the Croatian team. Croatia, like I actually forgot the amount of good players they have when we were doing
Yeah.
the preview. Um, when you actually look at their squad, they have like Perisic as well, and
Hmm.
obviously they got Modric, Kovacic, and the defense is actually more solid than I expected. But it was a good win for Croatia, and obviously the other result in the group, kind of puts them in good standing.
Yeah, definitely. And the Croatian squad is pretty stacked. Even look at the players they kind of brought off the bench. Like Kovacic and Brozovic. And there's a bit of controversy. I don't know. Did you see this morning that Nikola Kalinic, he's played for Blackburn Rovers when they were in the Premier League,
Mm.
but he's been sent home from the Croatian team. So that's just going to happen in the last hour or so because apparently he refused to come on as a sub, which
Wow.
is absolutely mind-boggling. Yeah,
Or
absolutely mind-boggling. I don't know why you'd ever do that, unless you were injured or something. But obviously, being sent home, there's obviously more to that story. So their squad has been slightly weakened. Obviously, they only have 22 men in that squad now. So
mm.
it'll be interesting to see how they adapt. And Kalinic is probably their substitute striker. So if anything happens, Mandzukic or Kramaric, then there might be an issue there for them.
That's a surprise, honestly. Like you mentioned, like it's the World Cup, only happens every 4 years, and that's most
Hmm.
likely his last World Cup because he's one of their more experienced players, I presume. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
uh, that's a big shock, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it's strange. I don't fully understand his reasonings there, but I guess there's more to that story that'll probably come out over the next couple of days.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, just looking, I've got the who scored kind of chart up of all the different players, the main kind of stats from the game. Who scored is a great resource that I use quite a bit. So it kind of gives individual player ratings. So any players kind of stand out to you that you want to kind of talk about, either on the Croatian or Nigerian side?
well, I thought Rakitic was very impressive for Croatia. Um,
Hmm.
Rakitic and Modric, they weren't outstanding. They weren't they didn't set the world alight on the pitch, but they were very solid and they just showed their quality, I presume, in comparison with the rest of the other players on the pitch. Um, I
Hmm.
felt on the Nigerian team, I wasn't impressed with too many people, I've got to say, but Ndidi, um, he was doing his
Hmm.
job at the very least. He was breaking up play quite a lot. And in the second half, he was trying to make an impact coming forward. In terms of disappointments, there wasn't really any disappointment on the Croatian side. They were just, pretty solid. No one was absolutely terrible, but no one, again, really, you know, showed showed up, in my opinion. But I was very
Hmm.
disappointed with Igalo in the Nigerian team. I presume that little purple patch, that kind of hot run of form he had at Watford a couple seasons
Yeah.
ago, um, it just hasn't come back because towards the end of this season he was kind of a non-entity at Watford, and like yesterday it was as if they were playing with 9 outfield players rather than 10. So I think
Yeah.
next game they'd be a lot smarter to start with Iniacho than Igalo. Um, and yeah, that's my opinions. What about you?
Yeah, yeah, no, I was going to ask that question about Ian Acho. Like, he didn't do a whole lot, but he didn't have that much time compared to Igalo, and I think that Igalo hasn't been doing much for Watford recently, because he actually moved to China. So
Mm.
he took the money and ran. So
Uh,
I haven't seen or heard anything from him there. So I don't know if he's on the more Watford style form, or if he's
so I think you're breaking up there.
hopefully they'll do better.
Um, oh yeah, yeah. I just missed that last part there. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, and I'm just saying that, like obviously Nigeria need to kind of bring their A game now for the next game. They need to get a result, because they're bottom of the table at the moment, and they need to get something going.
Of course. But in comparison, I think Croatia. When we were talking about dark horses, I actually failed to mention Croatia as one. And if they
Hmm.
can do one over Argentina and finish top of this group, they could give themselves every opportunity of getting to quarterfinal or semifinal berth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that kind of moves us on kind of nicely to the other two teams in that group, being Argentina and Iceland. So obviously Ronaldo kind of hit all the headlines after his Friday night performance. Everyone was kind of looking at Argentina then, and obviously looking to further the Messi v Ronaldo debate. So,
Mm.
the picture I've got up here has 5 players surrounding Messi. Don't think he did himself any justice in terms of his performance.
Mm.
It wasn't terrible, but yeah, definitely didn't live up to his kind of standards. And Iceland clearly had a game plan to try and nullify him, because while there's other good quality players in Argentina, he is everything about them that's good, really. So, what did you think of this game?
I thought the game from Iceland's perspective was as perfect as you can get. Obviously, they didn't want to
Hmm.
concede that goal that Aguero scored, but that was just a bit of class from him. But getting that goal, the comeback goal, so quick, and kind of then
Hmm.
responding with such a decisive, solid performance, especially at the back, and kind of taming Messi um, in terms of what they did. And I feel like when Messi plays at Barcelona, I don't know if he trusts his teammates more, but you see him without the ball a lot as well. Um, his off the ball movement for Barcelona is very underrated because you have so many other players that can take control at that Barcelona team. While when he's playing with Argentina, it just seems like all things go through him. Like if he does not touch the ball on one given offensive possession, it's the end of the world. And I think Iceland
Yeah.
caught on to that. And the minute he like smelt the ball, as you can see in this image, there'll be like 5, 6 players like just at his ankles, making sure he's got no real avenues to go with the ball, to dribble or to pass. And I was super impressed with Iceland. People criticize them saying they're very defensive minded, but when you have a population of 300,000 people and 2% of your population is basically at the World Cup, you know, uh, you can understand why they're so jubilant. On the other hand, I think Messi, especially after the Ronaldo performance beforehand, is going to be, a little bit disappointed. But again, he is talked about as the best player in the world for a reason, so I expect him to bounce back.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of people just judging everything off one game. It's not really an accurate representation, like you don't win a World Cup in one day or you don't become the best player in the world based on one game. So a lot more to go. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond next because, it is a tough group and Croatia and Nigeria are the next two teams that they've got to play. So no real easy games for them there. And, like it would be potential shock on the cards, if they don't get a result in their next game. They could be crashing out. I don't know, did you see the pictures of Diego Maradona in the stand?
I did. He seemed to be having a good time before the game, but not so
Yeah,
much after.
yeah, definitely. Like I don't think he lives his life any other way of just doing what Maradona wants to do. So
It's
nice
just
picture of him here with cigar, and there's other clips then of big, massive ads on the in stadium screens of smoking his band in the stadium, like, and then you got Maradona in one of the boxes, just not giving a
he
shit
doesn't
really, like
care.
so,
He does not care.
not at all,
It
not a care in
actually
the
reminds
world.
me, he
But
was the Argentina manager at one stage.
I know that was the last World Cup, so like Argentina have had great talents for the last while, so they just
Mhm.
need to put it all together. Obviously, I think their defense is probably their weakest area, and I just
Yeah.
have the who scored thing up right here, and Caballero, not the best goalkeeper either. He's just been
No.
kind of a backup goalkeeper for Man City, and then for some reason Chelsea signed him last year, so definitely not great. Not sure what happened. Romero 'cause he wasn't on the bench either, so he is in the squad, but we'll see if he regains fitness.
Mm.
So. Any of the players here kind of take your eye or disappoint? Obviously, we've kind of talked about Messi, but a bunch of other players here.
No, like when I say Messi disappointed me, like I his performance overall wasn't like exactly horrible. It's just the main fact that he kind of missed the penalty, and I think his team sort of let him down in terms of avenues to create opportunities. Um, so like I wouldn't say Messi's performance overall was horrible, but like I suppose we judge him by the superhuman standards that he creates, which is why we're so hard on him. But
Yeah.
in terms of other players that formed or didn't, I would say Otamendi, it rates Otamendi quite highly here, but in my opinion, I believe Rojo and Otamendi weren't that impressive. That's just my opinion. Obviously Rojo was a big part of the goal that they conceded with the ball going through his
Hmm.
legs, as it ricocheted and eventually reached Finn Bogsson. I probably butchered that guy's name. Um,
Yeah.
and in terms of Iceland, now there's not one guy in my opinion that done great. It's just I think the team effort. Obviously, Finn Bogsson was the guy that put the ball in the back of the net, but in terms of the game plan that they had, and then their goalkeeper was absolutely fantastic and made some great saves to deny
Absolutely.
Messi and co. I think it was just one of those situations where a great team managed to halt a great player.
Yeah, definitely. Like looking at the stats here, Argentina had 27 shots to Iceland's 8, so that keeper was kept busy, even though all those shots weren't on target, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
77.9% possession to 22.1% possession. So again, Iceland players were chasing the ball a lot, so I imagine they left it all out there on the pitch. So yeah, crazy game. Do you think Argentina might look at changing their starting lineup? Like it doesn't seem to quite work the way they have it right now, and you got players in attacking sense like Higuain, Diabala, Pavon on the bench. So it'd be interesting to see if they change that. 'Cause next.
I don't really know because like Aguero came out there, scored a goal. Messi is Messi.
Mhm,
Di Maria on his day is probably one of the you know best wingers in general in the world. So like I
mhm,
can't see you replacing him. Metza possibly. I suppose you could put Dybala, but I don't believe Jorge Sampaoli. Dybala is still young, and I don't believe he's willing to just give Dybala that starting berth just because of reputation alone. But I suppose if I were to put a player in there, The only guy I can think of is Dybala.
Hmm.
Higuain, I prefer Aguero up front to Higuain because Higuain is the type of player that you need to change your whole system for. Um,
Right.
and he's I see more in the Giroud role, maybe bring him on in the last 20, 30 minutes because he is a strong, powerful, direct striker that could maybe add a different dimension later on in games, which they try to do. Um, but I don't believe it was a problem with the personnel, honestly. Like, there's no defenders there that's going to improve the defense. Um,
Yeah.
Everything goes through Messi, and I think they kind of live and die by that sword. So it's more of a case of Messi just picking up his performance and making things click for the next game. What do you think?
Yeah, like I would definitely bring in Dybala, and Metza is definitely the player for me to kind of make way, or Di Maria, like, because don't think he had his best kind of game at the weekend. But it's obviously not up to me to pick and choose who starts. But Dybala has to start. He's an absolute beast of a player for Juventus over the last kind of couple of seasons, and previously in Serie A as well. So I think he's got to start. Or he didn't even come off the bench on Saturday against Iceland, so he needs game time, and he's a player who can do something and share that workload with Messi, because as you said, like, Iceland identified Messi as being like almost guaranteed to touch the ball multiple times in Argentina's build-up play. So if you can spread that risk with another player like Dybala, who can do amazing things on the ball, and even if it's creating more space for Messi, then I think that's totally worth it, because I don't think Metza really kind of performed that role very well for Argentina in terms of freeing up play, or providing an outlet for Messi to look to. So
Of
we didn't
course.
see who they start next game out, but
Mm.
I think we should move on now to Denmark versus Peru.
Oh,
So what did you make of this game?
this game was emotional. Like,
Mm.
I really wanted Peru to like, nothing against your boy Christian Eriksen, but like, I really wanted Peru to get something, especially after Cuevas, who unfortunately missed that penalty.
Yeah.
Obviously in tears at halftime. I honestly felt kind of an emotional attachment to them, and if both my teams end up going out, I suppose Peru will be my dark horse, because uh after the penalty miss, and them going a goal behind, they didn't back down. They kept pushing. They kept pushing. I just think it was just the lack of quality on Peru's end, because they just got so close, and
Hmm.
they made the adjustments that they needed to make, and Denmark, who were trying to remain tight and solid, and kind of break on the counter, they got exposed a couple of times by Peru, because they were very imaginative, very adventurous. They had players, even such, obviously Cuevas was their main man in terms of creativity. But even bringing on Guerrero, the guy who was controversial
Hmm. Yeah.
in terms of the drug ban, he kind of even added a different dimension, because I have to say, Farfan, I'm pretty sure you'll bring up the stats there in a minute, and Farfan was very, very non-existent. And he's the main guy that kind of disappointed me in the whole Peruvian team. But Denmark, they remained, I suppose, unfazed by whatever happened, and they got the result, and then they go forward with a big, big win in this group.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was important for them to kind of get off to a win, and they kind of played for that. Like, I don't think it was ever going to be a high scoring match, and obviously got lucky that Cueva kind of blew in the ball over the bar for the penalty at halftime. So yeah, it was crazy seeing his tears at halftime. Like, as fair enough at the end of a match or at the end of a penalty shootout, but you don't really tend to see that during a game. So I guess it was kind of one of their primary roles at halftime to kind of G him up again and get him ready for the second half. So
Mm,
yeah, I've got the who scored up right here. So obviously we've kind of mentioned Barfan being disappointing. He obviously kind of came off for Guerrero.
mm,
Poulsen got the ball or the goal for Denmark. Eriksson with the assist, and Kasper Schmeichel here got man of the
man.
match. Um, According to who scored. So that's an interesting one, obviously. You can see the shots as well from both teams that, Peru kind of dominated with 17 to 10. So I think Schmeichel was busy, but I think if he had saved the penalty, I think it's unquestioned a man of the match performance. But it's an interesting kind of rating scheme they've got here.
Yeah, they've been very harsh on our old boy Cuevas, which is very surprising because I thought he was a big part of every Peruvian attack. It always seemed to be Cueva or Carrillo on the right hand side that they were the two main guys that kind of brought everything together for Peru. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Farfan was kind of disappointed and just did not really add anything to their attack. Denmark, on the other hand, Eriksen was his normal self, I suppose, in the second half. In the first half, he was very isolated. His body language looked very frustrated, but he was the one that got the assist in the end for Paulsen, which does not surprise me at all. And then, the defense, Christensen, I think I'd go with that. He was very solid, and Kiar, they weren't special, but they were drawn out of position at times. So they will need to improve vastly for the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a solid enough Danish team, and obviously getting points on the board, they've set themselves up nicely now for the next round of games.
I would love to see Kasper Dolberg get onto the pitch. I felt he could have added something, but I suppose when they had the goal, they weren't focusing on scoring; they were just focusing on trying to shore up the result. But hopefully in the next game, because I think he's a very exciting talent.
Definitely, yeah, no, he's had a great season for Ajax and hugely rated and linked with a number of Premier League teams, so it'll be interesting to see him get some game time. But now I've got the picture of the Peruvian manager, so this is his reaction to Cueva missing that penalty. So there's been a bunch of memes on the internet that he looks like Rockstar, that he looks like Iggy Pop and stuff. So he was definitely annoyed. But one of the stories of the tournament so far for me is the 40,000 Peruvian fans that are in Russia right now. So they've brought absolutely huge support, and everyone's
like
fully vocal and stuff. So so it seems to be a Latin America kind of dominated tournament in terms of fans. A lot of Mexican fans, Peruvian, Brazilians, Argentinians. So it'll be interesting to see the flair that they bring and the fanfare associated with it. So don't know if that means that Europeans didn't travel as well, or if the South Americans are just so yeah, kind of moving on to the next game now. So the picture we've got up here is Kolarov. Obviously, he scored that free kick on another game on Saturday. So did you manage to catch this game?
I managed to. I've been fortunate to catch all the games so far.
Nice.
This game, honestly, again, it was another situation of two nervous teams, two very cautious teams, and just the quality managed to show out. Obviously, that free kick was out of this world, and we've seen some pretty free kicks so far, leading the way with Ronaldo. But this wasn't a game that you'd be watching in 10 years' time. Even today, I think I've forgotten most of it because I was like falling half asleep until that free kick. So I'm impressed with Serbia, and will they do anything later on in this tournament? I don't know. They have the players for it, but in terms of getting this group, they should be definitely focusing on getting out of the group, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And they probably would be a lot of people's dark horse for, obviously not winning the tournament probably, but, progressing through the tournament because they're absolutely stacked with players of, kind of Premier League experience or high-level European experience. So I'll just pull up the teams now. So I think Milenkovic at the centre-back, he looked like a very good player, big, strong, pretty confident on the ball as well. Obviously, Ivanovic and Kolarov as left and right back, that a lot of Premier League fans would know a lot about. Obviously, Matic in the centre of midfield has been absolutely beastly for Man United this past season, and then previously for Chelsea. And then, like my kind of pick before the tournament started to announce himself on the world stage of Milenkovic Savic. So I think He did well. He wasn't too impressive in the first half, but I think in the second half he kind of found his stride and
Yeah.
very skillful. He's playing the ball over people's head and continuing on and being strong to get to the ball. So I think absolutely huge player, and Kovacic did well enough up front. I don't think he's as clinical with the ball in front of goal as he possibly should be, but he's big and strong, and he can occupy any sort of defense. So I think he can help bring other players into attack. So definitely a very very good squad.
They
So
have
interesting to
an
see what they
amazing
do.
squad, and if you look at that bench as well, they have two hidden gems in Luka Jovic and Andrei Zivkovic, that not
Hmm.
too many people know of unless you follow your European football. And if they got into that pitch as well, because none of their wide forward players did anything to kind of set themselves apart. If they brought those other
Hmm.
two players on, Serbia could be even more dangerous. They're like you said, a dark horse. Teams that go up against them in the knockout rounds, if they do make it that far, should not take Serbia lightly at all. Because we all look at the big players such as Savic, such as Matic, but they do
Hmm.
have some young, excited players ready to make a splash. In terms of Costa Rica, big disappointment with Joel Campbell. Obviously, he's like the one real big name that you can kind of talk about. Um, Guzman as well came off the bench. Was not really uh, a big impact either. Um,
Hmm.
you have to think Costa Rica that was probably their chance to kind of get a result. And because they did well, I suppose, to hold them up until that big free kick. But again, going forward, I don't really see too much. And you have to think that they're going to need some big miracles for them to get out of this group.
Yeah. Obviously, they kind of surprised everybody at the last tournament, but they haven't kind of got going so far. And yeah, Joe Campbell is probably the name that people kind of recognize, and apparently he's still at Arsenal, but just out on loan again. He's on loan in Spain.
Forever on
But
loan.
Brian Ruiz, yeah, forever on loan. Brian Ruiz, you might remember him from Fulham. He didn't really kind of do much, but he's another kind of talented kind of number 10-ish kind of role. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously Keylor Navas in goal is probably he's not world class, but I'd say he's definitely their best player. And he produced some fine saves,
He
obviously
did.
being multiple Champions League winners. So shame for them to kind of do something in Serbia, but yeah, there'll be another game for them in a couple of days where they can see if they can bounce back. So yeah, moving on now. Obviously, we're kind of wrapping up games from earlier yesterday. So then obviously the game that everyone probably tuned into was Brazil Switzerland. So I think no matter who they're playing in the World Cup, I think people will always kind of tune in just to see the style and the flair that Brazil are bringing. So what did you
Well,
make of the game last night?
they didn't bring much style and flair yesterday, did they? Apart from Coutinho's wonder goal, which was very
Yeah.
wunderbar. Apart from that, they were just seemed to be frustrated. It's been kind of the story of the tournament so far with most of the big teams, even the big teams
Hmm.
that are winning, such as France. These other teams seem to be stifling them, making things frustrating. It's not obviously making for the best football to watch either. And
Right.
Switzerland knew what they had to do. They came there with a job. They got such a sloppy comeback goal too. It wasn't something to be clapping at, but they got the goal, and they just made things hard for those three of Jesus, Neymar, and Coutinho. Neymar, it was kind of like a similar story, I guess, with Iceland, with Messi,
Yeah.
and a lot of players surrounding him, not letting him kind of do his work, and the rest of the team. It just seemed we're kind of just watching Neymar kind of get flustered and not really help with decent off the ball movement. I wasn't impressed with Willian either. I felt he
Hmm.
could have done and he could have created more of an impact. But what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, Coutinho's kind of opening goal was an absolute worldie. When you see it from behind his perspective, you can see the whip on the ball, and it's absolutely top class goal. I think Brazil seemed to be like kind of overconfident and kind of like almost too casual after that kind of went in. They didn't really kind of hit the heights you would expect for them, and it's an interesting call that they got to make. Obviously, we've got these three players up for a reason. I think Coutinho and Neymar, yeah, they won't be dropped, but I just wonder if Firmino might come in for Jesus and give them a better striker to kind of lead the line. Not that Jesus is a bad player by any means, but he's in a different style to Firmino. And Firmino, like what he does for Liverpool, he operates kind of like a false nine, but he also can lead the line and kind of works very, very hard for the team. And then obviously when they've got different stars behind him, like Neymar and Coutinho, he can help kind of bring them in. So I think there might be a decision there. But what did you think about a lot of all the Brazilians anyway was kind of push, and a lot of commentators after the game and pundits were suggesting as well, definite push in the back, and they were surprised that VAR didn't pick it up because it's push in the back is definitely a free kick anywhere else on the pitch. So I guess what did you think of the Switzerland goal?
Yeah, that's just a case of the referee making the safe decision.
Mm-hmm.
It probably was, it probably was anywhere else on the pitch going to be given, but when it's in that hot spot and with when it's in that hot spot and with such high stakes in this situation, I just feel that the referee kind of copped out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, you just wonder why VAR didn't kind of interject and say, "Do you want to have a look?"
Well,
But
I think
yeah, I
so
guess
far
it's.
that VAR has been very inconsistent. I think
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the best, if I can remember correctly, the best showing of VAR was actually for that missed penalty. The referee didn't give it, then
Mm-hmm.
played on. Then VAR came in and said, "Hey, you should look at this. You should relook at this on VAR." The referee went there, concisely saw the replay, gave the penalty, missed the penalty, but like it was very nice and quick. VAR saw something that may have been worth looking twice, and they went back at it again. In this situation, you can't really blame the referee. You got to blame the people behind the scenes doing the VAR, and unfortunately, that they didn't do the right decision.
Yeah, no, obviously there's people involved in a decision-making process, so there's always going to be human error. So there will always be debating
The
points
whole point
and
of
everything like that. And
That's the whole point. Sorry, I might get a bit passionate here, but that's the whole point
yeah,
of VAR, to eliminate the whole human
mm,
error point of it. Obviously they've seen it, they've seen the replays, and they just chose not to, give it. Either they just didn't want to. I don't know what any situation could be. In this situation, they got the decision wrong, not to tell the referee to look at VAR. So that's a
definitely,
small failure, I suppose, on VAR in the World Cup this year.
100%. So talking about Switzerland, what did you make of their performance? I think Brahimi had a great game. He put in countless tackles and kind of won the ball off Neymar, so many different times and forced him wide and forced him to dribble the ball out of play at one point. So, who did you think played well for Switzerland?
Yeah, you're definitely right. Brahim got him all over the place. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, Shaqiri did put in a decent shift as well in terms of trying to create a threat on the other side. But again, apart from those two players, it was kind of a team effort in terms of overall stopping the threats of Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, and the rest of the team.
Hmm.
Even the goal that Brazil scored, it had to be basically a goal for them to kind of get past their goalie. And if you look at the players that they brought on as well to just see the game out, I thought, despite what these guys here say. I just thought Mbolo was quite impressive in terms of holding the ball up and just creating a nuisance, so Brazil couldn't just only focus on attacking. In terms of the Brazilian side, Neymar, he says he's the man of the match here. I felt he was okay. Obviously, he's not a one-man team, and the rest of the Brazilian side had to kind of help him in terms of creating opportunities, which I guess they failed to do. Coutinho, he seems to do it also. Like, I think it's a little Coutinho as well. Like, it's either he scores a wonder goal and then he's completely, silent until he scores another wonder goal, and then he's like seen as the best midfielder in Europe. And I felt that's kind of what you saw today. Scored a goal, but apart from that goal, I don't know where you really saw too much of him in the game. Right. Paulinho on the right side of that midfield tree was kind of silent as well for me. Felt they were quite maybe too balanced. I could have thought they could have. Obviously, the fan in me wants to see more goals, so obviously I'm going to say they should have put on more attacking players. But I did feel that they were just a little bit cautious, in my opinion. Again, like all the big teams seems to be doing, and it's costing these teams.
Yeah, and I think all the smaller teams facing these big teams are kind of bringing their A game and sticking to a very regimented kind of game plan to keep attacking players like Neymar and Messi silent, but obviously then kind of operating more as a team, and the whole collective is greater than some of their parts. So it's been interesting to see from that perspective. And yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'd like to see Mbolo start for Switzerland next time out, because huge young talent, and he's had a bad injury after his move to Germany, but I think he looks like he's back to fitness now. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets more game time, because I don't know if their other striker is as impressive. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Just on Shaqiri, obviously he's got relegated with Stoke last season. Rumours that there's like a 14 million or 12 million pound release fee. Who do you think in the Premier League would be kind of looking at him, or any other teams in Europe?
Well, I've heard he went to England, and I don't know if this will interest you, but I've heard the main team that kind of wants him is Tottenham, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would work, because he's a kind of a similar player to Eriksen, nearly identical in some ways to Eriksen. So I don't know if that's the right choice to go to. I think a team that would definitely fit him, and you might think this is a long shot, but I think Burnley. Like, I don't know if there was transfer now to their wage budget to kind of sign him, but he would be the forward-thinking type of player that Burnley would need, especially with their high finish last season. I think they finished 7th, and if they want to focus on kind of moving forward, and Shaqiri would be the type of player to maybe attract more attractive players to that team. What about you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think the Tottenham rumours, obviously, papers make up a lot of stuff to sell stories, and agents put stuff out to get the ball moving for certain players. So I personally don't think there's any kind of validity in that rumor. I think it's just that it's a rumor. So I think my immediate kind of assumption for where Shaqiri might go might be somewhere like West Ham, kind of link back up with Arnautovic. In London, it's a big club, big stadium. They will be able to pay his wages. I'm not sure how much he's on at Stoke, but I think West Ham will be able to match those. They are kind of heavily linked with Felipe Anderson from Lazio, who kind of operates in a similar
that would be
role.
A big transfer for West Ham.
Absolutely, yeah. No, because I've kind of played close attention to him for the last kind of couple of seasons, and absolute player that I love, and wanted Tottenham to sign. Did have a bad injury last year, and didn't really kind of come back to any sort of form in the back end of this season for Lazio. So if West Ham managed to sign him, then that would be absolute stunning signing, and then love to see how he adapts to the Premier League, because I think he's an absolute huge talent, and if he wasn't injured and he was playing regularly on form, I think he could have been in this Brazil squad. But obviously he's not, so we'll have to wait to potentially see him in the Premier League to play. But I just kind of wanted to see your thoughts on Shaqiri, because he is a talent, and there's definitely no way he's staying at Stoke next year.
No, I think he's already released a statement saying that he's definitely going to be moving away from Tuesday nights at Stoke, unfortunately, and he won't be doing it in the
Yeah.
Championship.
Yeah, we've lost that analogy of can they do it on
Yeah.
a wet Wednesday or a wet Tuesday in Stoke. So we'll have to
hmm
see who we can replace that one with. The last bit I wanted to talk about the game. Obviously, Neymar was fouled 10 times during the game, the most by any players I think in a tournament since 1998. Switzerland obviously went to look to kind of nullify him at every chance. He also potentially looked to exaggerate or go down at any chance as well. He was brandishing the imaginary yellow card as well towards the end, and at one point you even heard him on the close to the linesman. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4. How many does it take, or something like that? So,
hmm
what did you think? Do you think he exaggerated? Do you think Switzerland played a good tactic, or what did you think?
Well, like the way it always works is like if I'm a referee and I know Neymar's got the potential to exaggerate certain things, maybe if it was another player, I would have given a yellow by now. Like for example, in the players such as Messi, if it was Messi in the same situation as Neymar, yeah, but Neymar history of being rather theatrical and dramatic,
Hmm.
and maybe due to this, a referee's got to look at him twice and think, was it bad? Like, sure, it's a free kick, but was it really that bad? Did he really cause him to down as if he was shot or something like that?
Yeah.
You look at even some of these pictures, he's like gliding in the air with players not really like putting a foot on him. He's just like already on the floor. Like no doubt, like the Swiss players targeted him very aggressively. But players need to realize that if you create a reputation for yourself, players such as Sterling, Moses, guys that hit the ground
Hmm.
like with ease, you're not going to help yourselves in the long term. And I think a big player that's actually realized that is Ronaldo. I think
Right.
earlier on in his career, especially in the Premiership, he was known to drop down at any physical touch.
Hmm.
But as he's matured, I presume, in his later career, he only seems to go down when it's a solid piece of contact. And as you saw in his the penalty for Portugal, before that he would have probably went down in a more theatrical way, but that one looked like a natural movement, as if someone had been tripped,
Hmm.
and he got the penalty for it.
So are you saying that Ronaldo got better at diving, or
Yeah.
that he's ruled it out of his game?
I'm basically
Yeah,
saying like,
because
look, players go down. Whether it was a touch that was enough to bring them down or it wasn't, players still go down. I think I'm not saying they're getting better at diving, but I think the rule is if you've been touched and you go down, it's a gray area. Like I need to actually see these rule books, but I think from what I've seen in media, if you've been touched, like like a strong piece of touch, and you go down, and it seems like a natural movement, should be a foul. And I think players realize that. So I think there's a difference between running past two players and then expecting contact and falling down before the contact, because then that is stimulation, that is live. But there's a difference to that and then maybe running with the ball, create, and then contact has been made, and not necessarily enough to go down, but still it's contact. So players feel they've got the right to go down. Do you get what I mean?
yeah, yeah, totally, yeah, yeah, no, because watching kind of Gareth Bale for Tottenham, and I hate seeing players that I support dive, like in towards, I think it was the last season he played for Tottenham, he was kind of happened again and again and again, and he was like, I got contact, I didn't dive, like so.
Mm,
Definitely think players exaggerate to make sure that the ref sees, and like obviously the pictures that we see here, you can see Neymar screaming, and I presume some of these kind of come with a few rolls around on the floor. So
mm,
yeah, it's tough to analyze it for the ref in real time, like because
mm,
I know when I play football and like a small little knock can take you off your feet, like but I definitely think players go down easy and players can stay on their feet, but they take that option of I've got contact, I'll go down and guarantee a free kick or a penalty where the team might be better balanced or the individual player might be better balanced to have a shot at goal or whatever. So it's an interesting one, and unfortunately it's kind of part of the game now. So I don't think
mm.
there's any way of really kind of rooting it out. And
Well, in
certain,
my opinion, there's a simple way to rule it
hmm
out. It's be more lenient, I suppose, with fouls. Like clear fouls. I feel like, football, it's like football is supposed to be a contact game, not a non-contact game.
Hmm.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So like you should like situations where you can't tell if it's a foul or not should not be a foul, in my opinion. I'm not saying that people should be like, clotheslining each other and drop kicks. Should be, you know, but like any situation where you just can't tell if that's a foul, like it should be clear, like this guy took that guy out, it's a foul. But that's
Hmm.
that's just me. Maybe there's gonna be more injuries in David's style of association football. So maybe it's a better thing that I'm not the FIFA president.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of comes out of this. And does VAR get used for potential dives and stuff? It'd be
Mm.
interesting to see if those kind of situations kind of pop up during this tournament, because we're only 4 days in, so a lot more to go in terms of diving and VAR and stuff. So
Mm.
talked a good bit about Brazil. So let's talk about another one of the favorites who
Oh
played
yeah, yeah.
yesterday. So yeah, D Mine Shaft, they got shafted. So another defending champion team losing their opening game, obviously France in 2002,
Well,
kind of high level
another
examples.
like this is I just don't know. I think I'm just having bad luck because obviously my family is Nigerian, but I was born in Germany,
Hmm.
so this is like my
Right,
second team that I was meant
right.
to come into this tournament like ready to go. Even if Nigeria lost, I had Germany to count on, and they let me down. Um, I was obviously Mexico again, another situation of the big teams being cautious, and then the smaller team having a plan. Although Mexico, unlike the other smaller teams, they gave Germany a good go. Like
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
attacked each time with gusto. What was that?
Yeah, yeah, I fully agree.
I just feel Germany ran out of imagination, some creativity. Surprised because like you look at some of the stacked teams and maybe bar France, bar Brazil, like Germany are one of those teams that from 1 to 11 have players that can do the business. Honestly, but I think Mexico again come in with a plan, stay tight at the back, and then break forward with pace. And they got the goal, and then they withheld the German with German attack till the end, and got those big 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Mexico might start ruining some of the chances because, yeah, as you say, they kind of broke with speed and power a lot of times throughout that game. So, I was getting fearful for them towards the end when they hadn't put away any of those chances, and you fully expected Germany just to camp out in their half and eventually get the
Mm.
goal. And if they scored it with enough time to go, that if they scored with 10 minutes to go, you possibly would all going to win it,
Well,
but
can I ask you a
I thought
question
they
actually?
played very well. Yeah, yeah, of course.
A lot of people are saying that despite Germany's technique and power and skill and strength, the one thing they're missing, bar say Timo Werner, is real pace and
Hmm.
the the what's the word? Them leaving Leroy Sane behind and going ahead with players such as Brandt. Do you feel that
Hmm.
today is just an example of them kind of ruining that decision? Like, do you think Leroy Sané maybe would have been able to create something different that German team has? Because I'm sure they've got 3 or 4 more players that can do the same job as Brandt, but they don't have too many electrifying, pacey, skillful wingers such as Leroy Sané.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the whole world was shocked really when Leroy Sane was not even on the squad. Possibly you could understand him not starting a game, but to not bring him to the World Cup was absolutely crazy because he probably was one of the best players in the Premier League last season, and in terms of a player with a lot of flair and speed, he definitely brings all those to the table. So yeah, I do like Julian Brandt as well. Plays for Bayer Leverkusen, so I think he's got a big future. And obviously they brought on Marco Reus as well, who plays for Dortmund, and he
Coming
is
off
that
an
kind of
injury.
player as well who can bring. Yeah, coming off injury, and I think if he wasn't so injury prone, I think he would have been another one of those players to move from Dortmund to Bayern Munich, or to maybe even a Premier League team, because I think he'd be he would have been great in a Klopp team if he wasn't so injury prone. But definitely see that point. They don't really have that kind of pace, so they kind of have a plan A, and like when that doesn't come off like it didn't yesterday, you know, will they be able to change games that aren't kind of working in their favor? So, what did you make of the Mexico team?
Mexico team, they were scrappy. That's how I would describe them. Very scrambly. They did show some bits of quality, um, but they just kind of scrapped. You know what? They remind me of the Peru team with just that extra bit of quality. The quality that the Peru team kind of needed to kind of put that game away against Denmark.
Right.
Mexico, they are always a solid team. They're always within that top 20 of the best teams in the world.
Hmm.
And they're always very underrated in terms of the talent that they can produce. Obviously, um, Chicharito
Hmm.
has comes out from Mexico and he plays for them. But they've also produced some other decent players in the past. Also some players that maybe should have become. They have Gio Santos. He's a big player. Like 10 years ago, who
Yeah.
I thought was going to be a world beater, but never kind of lived up to it. But seems to do okay. On the Mexican side. But overall, even from the goal to their performance, it was scrappy, scrambly, a lot of heart shown, and very happy, I guess, semi for them to get the win.
Yeah, I think they played great kind of counter-attacking football. Um, so yeah, they kind of exposed Germany quite a number of times. Obviously, they do have quite a bit of pace in their side, so they had a lot of different kind of counter-attacking, fast breaks, and then obviously that led to the goal. So the player who put the ball in the back of the net was Lazono, plays for PSV. He's Mexico's top scorer in
I'm back
qualifying.
here.
Uh, yeah, sorry, did you drop out there? Did you?
Yeah, well, you started
Yeah,
talking there now.
yeah. I was talking about Lozano. So obviously he scored the goal yesterday. Top scorer for Mexico in qualifying. Top scorer for PSV last year, and he's only 22 years old. So before the tournament actually started, we kind of talked about these players that might kind of announce themselves and potentially get big money moves. So I think he looked like quite an impressive player, and playing in the Eredivisie, the potential to move to a bigger European league and team is definitely there. So did he impress you, or what did you think about him?
Irving Lozano,
Yeah.
I thought he very impressive.
Hmm.
Even before his goal, he got a couple of shots in that either tested the goalkeeper or was pretty close to going in.
Hmm.
And he's a player actually that for a while, I don't know if it's going to actually happen now at this stage because he's a bit older, but there was a long period of time he was being connected with teams in England, mainly London teams, Tottenham and Arsenal. But
Hmm.
this game today, he showed exactly, suppose, why he's one of Mexico's shining lights in terms of talent and in terms of what they can do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes because he is a young, exciting player, so the future is bright for him. Did you see the news about an earthquake in Mexico around the time of the celebration, or it's the
Was
time
it
of the
created
goal?
by the Mexico fans or was this like an actual
Yeah,
earthquake?
yeah. No, no. Apparently, like it could have been triggered by the fans celebrating the Mexican goal. So obviously, Mexico City is a huge city, 20 or 30 million people. So there was obviously like a collective jumping for joy. So that was an interesting kind of side note of a great tournament or a great match.
Yeah, that is very surprising. I think I did hear actually news of this, um, but I know how seriously I should take it. But wow, imagine they actually won the whole damn thing. Like,
I know, be insane. They'd be partying for a year, I think.
mm.
Um, So yeah, just pulling up the who scored here. What did you think of Timo Werner for Germany?
Team over.
She's mm,
I just felt he could uh, very just disappointed. But I don't think it's his fault. I think it's where what the coach did. Usually, low gets things right. but putting him up front in this type of game was probably not the place for it. I felt Müller would have done more of a job up front. Germany, a while were going the same way Spain were for a while in terms of that false nine role, and
Hmm.
Müller does a good job of being around Dita, space investigator, and kind of putting himself into little pockets, while Werner, a direct player, very quick. He would have maybe had more of an impact on the right hand side, and then Draxler, who's kind of like a more Ozil type player on the left, playmaker. Cruz as well was actually quite impressive for me. Khedira was silent, but I suppose his type of position, type of role is kind of unseen unless he does a bad job.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
in terms of their defense, it's hard to say they got unlucky, but it's not like they got played off the park against Mexico. They were the one doing most of the work. Kimmich going forward on the right hand side, he's always impressed me all year. I felt he did well. In
Yeah.
terms of Mexico, obviously, we're both very impressed with Irving Lozano. He's done a good job. Herrera as well was very impressive, industrious. Chikorito, even if he doesn't score, he's going to put good shift, making the defense work and also tracking back for his teammates. Overall, the Mexican team, the goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa, he's been in that team now for the last couple of tournaments, and he's always
Hmm.
impressed me. I remember playing with him in like FIFA 06, thinking he's gonna be like the next big thing. He never really came out into the next big thing, but he's always been a solid goalkeeper for Mexico. So
Yep.
I'm looking at that German team now in terms of maybe who could come in.
Hmm.
Obviously, maybe Royce might start ahead of Werner, and then they might put Müller up front. I really think he needs to start up front for them to really get their attack going. Gomez has never really impressed me for the last on the international front. Anyway, I know he's scored goals all the time for his club, but internationally, I don't think would be my pick. I feel maybe Gundogan for Khedira, if they're playing one of the smaller teams, could maybe
Right.
add a little bit more offensive prowess while also keeping the midfield solid. Um, but apart from that, and Goretzka as well maybe needs
Goretzka.
a
Yeah, I
shot
was going
as
to
well.
mention.
Um, but yeah, apart from that, congratulations Mexico and Germany. You better get going.
Absolutely. Yeah. The old adage of never write off the Germans. It's only been one game, and I think
Mm,
I'd say they've had the experience of winning the World Cup, so hopefully they'll be hurting after the loss yesterday, so they might be able to kind of get back to a collective mentality and kind of push things forward. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of progress in the next game. And yeah, I was going to mention Goretzka as well. Surprised he didn't come off the bench yesterday because I think he's a
mm,
great player, and he's the latest big German player to move from pretty big German team in Schalke, and he's moved to Bayern Munich. So be interested to see him get some game time ahead of playing for Bayern Munich next year.
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, kind of moving on to the game that's kind of currently on right now. There's 30 minutes gone, 0-0 between Sweden and South Korea. Not too much kind of happened yet. South Korea had a player taken off injured, looked like a hamstring injury. Son is obviously their kind of main player. He's just went down with a foul to win a free kick for his side. So yeah, what do you think of Sweden and South Korea?
I feel well. This game, I'm unfortunately not catching at the moment, but I will be able to catch the second half. Um, in terms of what I expected before it, I didn't expect much for this game. I will not lie to you, especially with the big personality Ibrahimovic not being brought with them
Right.
to the World Cup. It's usually Sweden's always a bang average team unless they had Larson or Ibrahimovic team, and this for the first time in a long time they don't have either. And I'm talking about the legend Henrik Larsson. That's
Yep. Seb Larsen.
I yeah. And I'm thinking they'll do a good in getting out of this group. That would be an achievement, I think, in themselves. South Korea, they're a surprisingly talented squad, obviously led by your man Son.
Hmm.
So I don't know how's it been going so far. Who's been edging it in the game?
Yeah, I've just been kind of paying attention kind of loosely as we've been kind of talking. So there hasn't been any kind of clear-cut chances or anything that I've seen. There was just a stat up there about 9 fouls committed by Sweden so far and 10 fouls committed by South Korea. So I think it's been more about the fouls and kind of shots on goal or anything so far. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, that's looks like a cagey enough kind of game. I think both teams kind of recognize that they don't want to lose this game, and if they can snatch a win, then that's what they'll go for. Because got Germany and Mexico in their group, so obviously Mexico winning yesterday against Germany is kind of bad for both of these teams because kind of puts their chances of qualifying kind of up against it. So one of these teams would probably need to win this game to have any chance of getting out of the group stage.
Of course.
Yeah, there's probably not too many players on the Sweden squad that people recognize other than kind of Seb Larsson. They are definitely more of a collective unit without that big star, as you mentioned, without a Henrik Larsson or a Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But obviously then, South Korea have got Son and they've got Key, who plays for Swansea. It'll be interesting to see if they can put things together.
Well, you look at South Korea, and they've always surprisingly been a decent footballing country. I guess all the way to 2002 when they hosted it and made that controversial, improbable run to the quarterfinals. Ever since then, you've always seen one or two big names, Park Ji-sung in the past, now Hyun-min, the main man. So I won't be surprised if they, I think I might go ahead and make a little prediction and go for South Korea to win the game 1-0.
Interesting.
I'm not sure about the South Korean team now, I won't lie, but I do think that in modern footballing gives South Korea the edge. Sweden, in terms of their team, the player most people, I guess, would know is the underperforming Lindelof from Manchester United.
Right.
And then Sebastian Larsson. A player that I actually love, and mainly for my FIFA exploits, is Ekdal in the middle. But he's got a job in Italy. He can pass the ball. He's got good vision, and I promise this is not the stats that FIFA gives me. This is from my experience from time to time. So watch out for him. If Sweden do get any success, it's probably because the exploits of Seb Larsson and Ekdal in the middle of the pitch.
Okay, yeah, that's a completely new name on me. So yeah, I do love Football Manager and FIFA for that. Kind of identifying kind of new players that are talented but might not have that kind of household kind of recognition. So it'd be interesting to see him play, and I'll definitely keep an eye out as the game progresses. So yeah, this is the probable team. This is like a preview from Who Scored. Don't know if this is the actual team that's playing, so we can check that out later and kind of maybe have it in our review of the game afterwards. But yeah, these are the odds. So yeah, your South Korea 1-0 is 10-1, so that's quite an interesting pick you guys. So wouldn't be surprised if that happened because they do have probably the best player on the pitch is Hyun-min Son. So it probably won't be a high scoring game. Obviously, it's still 0-0 after 36 minutes. So if there is a team to win, it probably will be by a single goal. So that's an interesting pick, and it's probably something that I would kind of echo as well. And if I was to put a bet right now, I'd do South Korea 1-0 with Hyun-min Son being that goal. It'll be interesting to see in an hour's time or something like that, if either of those predictions are right. So anything else you want to speak about on Sweden and South Korea?
To be honest, no.
Yeah, there's.
It's not a game I'm looking forward to. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of moving on, and then obviously the last kind of group to play includes Belgium and England. So those two teams are playing, not playing each other yet. So first up we got Belgium playing Panama. Obviously Belgium are kind of one of the better squads in the tournament. Kind of a lot of people's dark horses for actually winning it. A lot of people will say the main weakness probably is Roberto Martinez as manager. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. And they're them and England are probably the two biggest teams that we haven't seen play yet. So we don't have an indication of how they're kind of going to line up, or what sort of attitude they're kind of bringing, or what kind of form all the players are in. So yeah,
Well,
what are you
like,
looking forward to today?
look, Belgium are going to beat Panama. Like, that's not a
Hmm.
question. I just want to talk about how Belgium are going to play going forward. And,
Right.
you know, history tells us, like, we've seen Roberto Martinez play with Everton and Wigan, and he obviously hasn't had the talent at his disposal that he has with Belgium. So I need to. It's been a struggle for me to imagine how this Belgium team is going to set up. If we're going to go by their Everton slash Wigan kind of history that he has, I presume he's going to set up very solid, and then maybe
Hmm.
let two or three of his players kind of take the majority of the attacking load. So maybe we can imagine that it's going to be players such as De Bruyne, Lukaku, and Hazard that will be the main three, while the rest will be trying to focus on showing up a strong core and back line. But maybe with Thierry Henry by his side, and realizing that he does have probably one of the most talent-rich sides in the world, and probably the greatest Belgium squad ever.
Definitely.
He would be remiss if he didn't play a more vibrant, flowing style of football. But yes, so far the so far the kind of story of the World Cup has always been the bigger teams playing lesser than they can. So I really hope Roberto Martinez, shuts up the critics and puts out a team that can play to their potential.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll talk about the probable team selection in a second. But I just wanted to talk briefly about Panama. Obviously, tiny country, first ever World Cup, so I think they're absolutely delighted to get there, and they beat out the USA for a spot in the World Cup. So I think absolutely huge achievement for them getting to the World Cup, and I think they'll just be happy to be part of it. But I think they'll show a lot of passion and heart and have that kind of team ethic to try and frustrate Belgium. Don't know too much players, to be perfectly honest, but here you can see a picture of them, kind of arriving in Russia. They all have their
Didn't
hats on,
even
and they're
know
all like
it.
happy, smiling. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see them, and uh, obviously they're playing one of the best teams in the tournament, so hoping for a good game. But yeah, let's kind of take a look at the probable starting lineups, because you kind of alluded to it there, of being interested to see how Martinez and Thierry Henry are going to set up the Belgium side. So according to who scored anyway, and these are obviously kind of best guesses as opposed to anything else, but it looks like according to them they're going to be setting up in a 3-4-3, for Tangen, Boyata, and Alderweireld as the three centre backs. Um, Great defence, and obviously Courtois behind them, world class goalkeeper. So I do think they will be kind of defensively solid. And they got Carrasco. He played for a while at Atletico, had since moved to China, which I think is surprising. But if he is playing left wing back role, then I think that might be kind of a weak spot, because he is not the best defender. But if he's kind of been well drilled to play that role, then he might be able to do it. And against a team like Panama, he might be able to not be under as much pressure as he would if he's playing like some against like England or something. And then the rest of the midfield, Vidal, again another player playing in China, played in Russia previously, so highly rated in Belgium, but he's never really kind of played in the top leagues around the world. So a lot of players don't really or a lot of fans don't really rate him, because he hasn't really kind of proved it on the biggest stage. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. And then obviously Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best players in the Premier League last season. So he'll probably be the one kind of pulling the strings from them in an attacking sense. Monier right back for PSG. So he'll be in the right wing back role according to this lineup. And then in front of Hazard, Lukaku, and Dries Mertens, three absolute beasts in an attacking sense. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of link up play. Obviously, Lukaku will be the one kind of leading the line, and Hazard and Mertens possibly kind of swapping sides and dropping deep and being very kind of fluid in an attacking sense. So what do you think of this probable lineup? Is it something you'd agree with?
I think in like I'm reading it as a very attacking team, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, I think Carrasco is another attacking player, because you can't really, if you look at a Panama team, and if it really is going to be set up such as like a 5-4-1, um where you got 4 wide midfielders rather than 2 wingers. It just looks
Hmm.
like Panama are just gonna try and set up 2 big blocks of defense and let Belgium break them down. Um, so you got Carrasco, Meunier, who's a great defender but can also add something going forward. De Bruyne, obviously, probably right now the best central midfielder in the game right now. Lukaku,
Hmm.
who's a top 10 striker in the world right now, and I think he would, he's a dark horse for the top goal scorer pick because unlike a lot of teams, Belgium do include Lukaku in the build-up play quite a lot, and he seems to be at the end of things a lot. And look, Lukaku's a guy like he wouldn't be exactly uh you wouldn't say he's gonna be a guy that's gonna be scoring an unbelievable amount of goals each season, like 30, 40 goals. But he just
Hmm.
always seems to get you your 20 goals, your 25 goals per season. And I feel if you can add this now to tournament football, you could easily see him maybe grabbing 5 or 6 goals, which is usually enough to get that golden ball sometimes. So
Right, absolutely.
I do see a really attacking lineup. Although I would like to see a young player called Tielemans get some time. He's a big
Mm.
player. I don't know. Do you know if he made the squad? I'm pretty sure he made the squad. Um,
Um,
I
yeah,
know.
not 100% sure. I would assume he would have, because yeah, when I was reading out that team, it was Moussa Dembele and Tielemans that were the two kind of ones that I was looking out for to see if they would make the starting lineup in the centre
Yeah,
midfield. Because yeah, like obviously De Bruyne is kind of a shoe in, but Witzel next to him,
and that's the thing
obviously
though.
he's.
Axel Witsel like seems to be a player that Martinez loves because he
Hmm.
did leave out some big players in place of Axel Witsel, who's plying his trade now in China. And like no doubt he's a talent and he's always been a good player. He's always been solid as well for Zenit when he was back there too. But obviously is he still the same player? He's obviously not playing against the same sort of time. It's obviously cost Oscar his spot in the Brazilian lineup. But
Hmm.
Martinez seems to believe in Axel Witsel's talents and continues to abide by him.
Yeah, and yeah, just checking the squad there, and Tielemans is there. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets some game time. Obviously, some other kind of absentees from this predicted starting lineup is Vincent Kompany, and Marion Fellaini, and Batshuayi. So I think there's a couple of injuries there with some of those players, and
Yeah,
Dembele is
Batshuayi is
kind of
recovering.
always injured. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So they definitely have players on the bench as well. Torgan Hazard as well as played well for Werder Bremen, I think, this season. Obviously, the younger brother of Eden Hazard, Nasser Chadli, who's played in the Premier League for a while. He's another big, strong player who can add an attacking threat as well.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, on paper, Belgium have definitely one of the strongest squads. So it'll be interesting to
Oh,
see if they can, be one of those big teams that actually can put in a big performance. And playing against Panama, you kind of expect them to because they're probably the biggest team that are playing like one of the weakest teams. So looking forward to this game and seeing how Belgium play.
that's here.
Yeah, so just checking the odds. Yeah, so Belgium heavy favorites, Panama rank outsiders. No surprise there. But it's interesting that 2-0 is kind of the predicted score here, judging on the odds. So expecting a couple of goals. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I would. I think they might score. Well, I'm hoping this is me being wishful, but I think a 3+ goals. I can't see Panama scoring at all. Um,
Right.
yeah, so it'd be fun game to watch though. Hopefully, if Belgium can get their attack clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you kind of mentioned Lukaku, but being a potential golden boot for this tournament. So if he puts in a couple of goals here today, he'll definitely kind of put his
Get into it.
name in the hat. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, because obviously it's Ronaldo, current top goal scorer in the tournament. So yeah, I think unless you have anything else to add, we'll kind of move on to the final game this evening, which is obviously the England game. So they're the last team to kind of play in this first round of matches. So what are you expecting from England?
Oh, you never know with England. Uh, Well, you kind of always do know that they always they always disappoint somehow. Um, uh, on paper, let's judge them off paper firstly, rather than history. And on
Right.
paper, this is probably, I wouldn't say their best team now for a while, but it's probably their most promising team. You know, a lot of young players just entering their prime.
Hmm.
Um, there's no one with real strong amounts of experience in the actual squad. Maybe Cahill's probably one of their
Right.
older campaigners, and Henderson. Um, but what they lack in experience, you know, what they lack in international experience, they gain in club experience. You know, you look at players like Dele Ali,
Hmm.
Walker. You know, a lot of these players, their age, have played at games, um, and they will be coming into this, I think, with some quiet confidence. You know, there's less of a spotlight put on England this year rather than usual. I think the fans, despite what you think, I think the fans this year have come into this tournament kind of just expecting just a good show. You know, for once, no real talk of winning the whole thing, but just trying on this tournament for future tournaments to come. Um, and who knows, they could be a cheeky pick for a semi-final berth if things do click right. My only problem with them has always been goals,
Hmm.
and I don't know what the problem just seems to be. They set up to be very solid. Gareth Southgate, obviously being a defender, he's always
Hmm.
focused on um, conceding the least amount rather than scoring the most. Um, and obviously with their, most likely it's going to be a 3-5-3 setup if I'm not mistaken. You're going
Hmm.
to probably see a lot of wide wing play, trying to get Sterling and Rashford or whoever is going to be the wide forward players involved. So you know, in terms of the tournament, my prediction will probably be, depending on who they play, round of 16 or quarterfinal exit, I think. And they definitely have all the capabilities to surprise us, and you know, it will be fun to watch them anyways.
Yeah, definitely like obviously watched league in the world, so a lot of these players, are being watched by fans around the world on a regular basis. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see who they've decided to put out as a starting 11. Obviously, there's been kind of potential leaks in a lot of the media and stuff, and I think even Gareth Southgate, I think it was possibly on Friday that he kind of told the team who's playing. So I think that's an interesting call. Obviously, there's kind of two trains of thought. Announced it the day before or even a couple of hours before, but he's gone for multiple days before, which is an interesting one. So we can take a look at their kind of predicted lineup, and obviously you don't really know until the teams are officially announced. But yeah, I think they're kind of rumored to be going with 3-4-3 style formation. So I think the big kind of call in the team is Henderson versus Dyer. So it looks like it's going to be Henderson starting there in kind of defensive midfield alongside Ali, with Lingard kind of dropping deep and making kind of forward runs. So
Walker,
I think
centre
the
back.
three, yeah, yeah. So it's he's played there as well for Man City last season as being the right hand side centre
And
back.
Maguire ahead of Cahill.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's what the rumors are anyway. So we'll see how that goes. So I think Gary Cahill wasn't playing a lot for Chelsea last year. He kind of came into the side towards the end of the season. Um, so I think Maguire was an ever present in the Leicester team. So there's obviously a big call to make there as well. So obviously I think you're siding on the Cahill side. So um, I think Harry Maguire is a great centre back. Loves to play with the ball as well, and kind of makes forward runs with the ball as well as stones. So I think there's a lot of vertical movement in that kind of back line, and obviously with
But
the speed of Walker.
see can you see offensively where they might have problems? Like, I can just easily see them. I don't know if it'd be against this Tunisia team, but like, you know, I just don't see where I like against a decent team anyway. I don't know too much about Tunisia, but I don't see where the
Mhm.
goals are going to come from a team that's solid. and can set up quite solidly. Um, if they plan on setting up a 3-4-3 like that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not too
Yeah.
confident with that.
Yeah, I guess you never know, but like obviously, I think Harry Kane will probably be leading the line up front on his own, and then Sterling and Lingard kind of operating either side of him potentially, or dropping deep,
Mm.
and those two players have absolute blistering pace, so I think they've got huge potential to kind of operate between the centre backs and kind of occupy the defensive midfielders as well. So I think there is potential there, but things need to be kind of clicking for England, and it would be interesting to see how they kind of adapt. And we haven't talked too much about Tunisia, and I don't really know too much about their team, but they went unbeaten in their qualifying. A lot of people say that they're the best African side to make it to the championship, so I don't think it would be kind of a rollover. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of style of football they bring, and obviously England will be kind of under pressure to get the win. So, any sort of predictions, or what are you kind of thinking for this game? Obviously, I think as the odds kind of show here that England are definite favourites. So, what are your personal thoughts on the likely outcome?
I'm gonna go 2-1 win.
2-1 win. Okay.
I think England will always be a bit iffy at the back, so they might concede one goal maybe from a set piece. But
Mhm.
I think they got 2 goals in them. And Tunisia will give them a scare, and then obviously after the game we'll start criticizing England for such a poor blah blah blah. But I think they'll get the 2-1 win, and obviously go into Panama with confidence. And then obviously that'll set them up for the big one,
Mhm.
Belgium versus England match.
Yeah, that should be a great match, and I think the fixtures have kind of suited both of those two big teams, that they get to play the two kind of minnows in their group first, and set up like what looks like to be a first second place playoff. So my predictions for tonight: 2-0 win for England. I think they'll have enough to get there, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 0-0 at half time, and then as the game progresses, England kind of come away with it. So yeah, that'll be my prediction for the game. So yeah, we've spoken for about an hour and a bit. So is there anything else you want to add? That's everything that we've kind of got on the rundown for
No,
what we want to talk about today.
no, I think we're both gonna come up with a nice review show after the end of
Hmm.
this, so we can kind of review the first kind of set of games. Who's impressed us, who's not impressed us, and kind of look forward to the next set of games. So anything you have to add?
Yeah, not really. No, like obviously excited to see the games this evening, because Belgium and England are two teams that obviously myself and others would know a lot about the individual players. So I think there's definitely a lot to be excited about, and a lot of interesting developments should happen. So yeah, this is the end of the game round one. So obviously there's kind of no let up in terms of games, and there's games pretty much here on out. So yeah, we'll have a kind of a quick recap of the games that were played today, and then kind of wrap up round one as well. So yeah, I think that should be a nice little breathing point before the next round of games kick off tomorrow.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, excellent. So that was another black and white football show, another one in the can. We're going to try and do these as often as we can, and speak about as many games as we can. So obviously trying a new format this time with kind of presentation instead of our faces as the live stream. So let us know how you kind of feel about that. The last one, the video quality was kind of shocking. We're kind of looking like we've got kind of weird filters on our face of dodgy quality. So hopefully the broadcast of this one was a bit better. So yeah, I guess we can talk on the next show and do our roundup.
Perfect. Perfect. So Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think, and we'll be back later on for another show.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you at the next one.